between Ukraine and Russia.
What was this soldier thinking while the missiles were flying right at him? And this is how it looks like at night. Naturally, it is impossible to shoot down such a shell or hide from it. Armor turns into a mesh, shrapnel easily penetrating body armor, and helmets. Check out this video. Now watch this fragment. The projectile impact has a distinctive explosion. It's the work of the HIMARS. It's unmistakable. That's how his ammunition explodes. Here's a few more examples. Two Russian Grad MLRS stand in a combat position. The Ukrainians use special shells with a lot of shrapnel. Two missiles destroy the MLRS together with the crew. And this is a Tor surface-to-air missile system. The accuracy of HIMARS is enough to hit a SAM with just one missile. The cost of such a complex is more than 10 times higher than the cost of one HIMARS missile. Over 50 large Russian ammunition depots were destroyed in 2 months. On September 10th, Mark Milley said that more than 400 large military targets had been hit with HIMARS. This is what it looked like in practice. This is a video of a hit on a Russian military convoy, and there are dozens of such examples. Here's another one, all thanks to the reconnaissance advantage and high mobility of HIMARS complexes. First, reconnaissance detects the target. Then, the coordinates are transmitted to the nearest HIMARS calculations. When everything is ready, the Ukrainians send some gifts to the Russians and burn the Russian equipment. What were the Russians counting on by moving their equipment into the open? The Ukrainians followed them, waited for the Russians to stop, and aimed missiles at them. The Russians hid their howitzer in a forest belt. That's no obstacle for HIMARS. The howitzer and the crew destroyed. Today, I'm going to show you how these systems are burning out Russian troops in Ukraine. These weapons broke all of the Russians' plans. How and why did that happen? Let's get to the bottom of it. It all started with an appeal from the Ukrainians on April 13, 2022. The US Department of Defense made a statement that deliveries of these systems would begin on June 1, 2022. On June 23rd, Ukraine confirmed receipt. On June 24th, this video appears online. It shows Ukrainians using HIMARS against Russians for the first time. On June 25th, the General Staff of Ukraine releases a promotional video about the work of HIMARS. I remember how encouraging it was to the entirety of the Ukrainian people. It was from that day that the Russians began to feel the power of American weapons. The Ukrainians started hitting all the fat targets the HIMARS missiles could reach. And Kherson? This operation was made possible by the HIMARS systems. The Ukrainians started knocking out these bridges that were supplying the Russians at the time. Blow after blow weakened the Russian troops on the right bank. Sometimes the supply of shells, food, and medicine stopped for several days. Starting from July 26th, the Antonivsky Bridge became unusable for movement. In parallel, the Ukrainians were striking at the Kakhovka Dam and Railroad Bridge. One of the Russian columns came under this kind of fire. We had to process this video in order to not shock you with this footage. Railroad service was completely stopped, and the bridge was destroyed. The Russians realized that they were trapped. On November 11th, they retreated from Kherson, blowing up the bridge. If a bridge, railroad, or highway supplying the Russian army is within range of these systems, the Ukrainians strike them. Barracks with Russian soldiers also came under fire from HIMARS missiles. The most high-profile incident occurred on December 31st, when 6 HIMARS missiles struck a camp of Russian soldiers in Makivka. According to various estimates, the Ukrainians killed about 400 terrorists that night. The building was completely destroyed. This was the site of the Russian Army's field headquarters and tents with soldiers earlier in the day. This is the explosion of one of the ammunition depots. The Russians thought they had a secure rear and were safe. Within a month, the Ukrainians destroyed dozens of large depots. And this went on for months, which weakened the Russian artillery. In this footage, a Russian soldier captures the detonation of ammunition after a HIMARS hit. Another warehouse. Here's what the warehouse looks like the day after the hit. In its place is nothing but scorched earth. All of this is the result of HIMARS' high accuracy and range advantage. At the same time, strikes were made against command posts where the 155mm Western artillery could no longer reach. Field commanders of the Russian army were gathering at this place, and good old Uncle HIMARS paid them a visit. Together with high-ranking military officers, the Ukrainians destroyed more than 20 units of various equipment. This is what a serious command center in the town of Izium looks like after the HIMARS strike. The Russian military was shocked by the firepower of the system. And such strikes have become systemic. They are still being repeated. With only 10 HIMARS installations, this has allowed the Ukrainians to launch dozens of strikes against the Russians every 24 hours. At the same time, Ukraine targeted Russian logistics. This is how the railroad stations through which the Russians were pulling equipment, fuel, ammunition, provisions, and so on to Ukraine burned. Puffs of smoke rise above the railroad station in the town of Debaltseve. And this is a photo of the hits on the railroad bridge and right-of-way at Ilovaisk. Such actions on the part of the AFU have greatly affected the fighting ability of the Russians. On August 26, 2022, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense published a post on Twitter. Usually, strike operations look like this one. The Ukrainians have detected an accumulation of soldiers and equipment in the forests of Kremena. The HIMARS pick a convenient position to hit and fire missiles. 2 tungsten-filled missiles do the job. Here's another example. A recent strike on the Russians in the Kherson region. 5 units with infantry. One HIMARS system fires 5 missiles at programmed targets. All 5 missiles hit exactly in the designated places and hit the Russian army personnel. Because of the high effectiveness of HIMARS, the Russians began to place their depots, command posts, repair bases, and other logistics further away from the front. The Ukrainians did an ingenious thing. They simply started using HIMARS for precision strikes against Russian artillery. For more than a month in the reports of the General Staff, you can see a large number of destroyed Russian artillery every day. Some of them I will show you now. 2 Russian Masta SSPHs were discovered by the AFU. Boom! The first one is destroyed, and another hit. And this is the Tornado MLRS, a rare, valuable, and deadly machine. One shot, and the Russians don't stand a chance. If you watch this video in slow motion, you can see how the HIMARS missile hits the target. This SAM wasn't so lucky either. The HIMARS fragmentation missile causes the missiles of the complex to detonate. Even concrete slabs and several floors do not save you from the impact. The shells penetrate the concrete with ease. Look what happened to this building. And if these soldiers are in the field, there is nothing stopping the Ukrainians from using ammunition with tungsten balls. Such shrapnel pierces metal. Can you imagine what it does to Russian soldiers? This SPH was stuffed with ammunition and exploded violently when hit by a rocket. No matter how much the Russians tried to protect their artillery, even partially burying it, it doesn't help. A special feature of the HIMARS is its high accuracy. Now, I've got dozens of similar videos in very good quality. If you're interested in seeing a sequel, write about it down in the comments. All indications are that the Americans have already transferred GLSDB bombs to the Ukrainians. They are launched from HIMARS and fly 150 kilometers, perfect for destroying buildings. Take a look at this video. As the Ukrainians claim, this is how you use a GLSDB bomb. One question does remain. When will the US transfer ATACMS missiles to Ukraine? Such a move by the Pentagon would complicate the situation for Russia. The Ukrainians would be able to destroy logistics in Crimea and de-occupy the south. To do this, we need to cut off supplies to...
Si no puedes aportar económicamente al canal, suscríbete, comenta y comparte, esto ayudará mucho a seguir informando.